Okay. Hello everyone. My name is Sushma Lakimsetti. Today I want to say some basics about JavaScript. When we want to talk about JavaScript, first we should know about what is a JavaScript. JavaScript is nothing but a lightweight object-oriented programming language which we used by several websites for scripting the web pages. Now, what is a lightweight programming language? We don't know which programming languages are called as lightweight programming language. Normally, a lightweight programming language are designed to have small memory footprint, which are easy to implement, which have simple syntax and semantics, so they can be learned easily. These kinds of programming languages are called as lightweight programming language. It is an object oriented programming language. We all know what is an object oriented programming language. A program which is based on objects, which has both data and code, data in form of fields and code in form of procedure. This kind of JavaScript is a object oriented programming language. It is an interpreted and fully fledged programming language which enables dynamic interactive on websites when applied to an HTML document. Here again, we don't know what is an interpreted programming language. Generally, programming languages are two types. One is compiled language and another one is interpreted language. A compiled language is nothing but where the target machine directly translate the program. But in an interpreted language, the source code is not directly translated by the target machine. Instead, a different program, which is nothing but an interpreter, reads and executes the code. Here I will tell you an example. For example, there is a paragraph which is in another language, Tamil. We can think. We don't know Tamil, but we want to understand it. How we can do that? First, we use a translator and change the entire paragraph into an English paragraph. Then we can read and understand. This type of conversion is considered as a compiled conversion. When it comes to interpreter, we have a friend who knows Tamil. He's sitting beside you and he's reading each sentence and explaining you what is the meaning of that sentence. Here that is considered as an interpreted language. Here your friend is an interpreter. He will explain you, he will read each sentence and he will explain you. Okay. Normally a JavaScript is mainly used to make dynamic interactive with the web pages for when applied to an HTML document. JavaScript can be included in a HTML document in two ways. One is internally and another one is externally. Internally, it is just written inside the script code, which can be included both in the head, body, or in both of them. A single web page can have many number of JavaScript codes. When it comes to an external linkage, we can write a JavaScript code in an separate external file with the .js extension, and directly we can link that file to the HTML document. Okay. Next, JavaScript can calculate, manipulate, and validate data. Like other programming languages, JavaScript also has variables, functions, operators, loops with which we can calculate and do any kind of calculations. Manipulate. JavaScript can manipulate the data and validate the data. Here, I want to tell you an example. Generally, we fill forms in which they ask us to fill phone number, mail, ID. If we fill only nine numbers in place of a phone number, immediately it will show you a red box saying that it is an error. Generally, it is done by the JavaScript code that is included in the HTML document. It is not done by the server. So, JavaScript can also validate the data that we input. Next, as we know what is a JavaScript, now what can a JavaScript do? JavaScript can change HTML elements, can change HTML attributes, CSS styles. It can remove existing HTML elements and attributes. It can add new HTML elements and attributes. Here, JavaScript can react to all existing HTML events and attributes. HTML events. It is new to us. What is an HTML event? A HTML event can be something the browser does or something a user does. Example for an HTML event can be web page has been finished downloading. That can be considered as an example for something a browser does. And a HTML button was clicked. This can be considered as a example for something a user does. So JavaScript can react to all the HTML events and attributes. HTML JavaScript can also create new HTML events in the page. Next, okay, JavaScript supports all the operators that we use in C program. It has a similar syntax. It can use all the loops, if, else, switch, for, while. These loops have similar syntax like that of a C programming language. When it comes to functions, here a function can be defined by using a function keyword. The syntax for the function, as we can see here, we just write a function keyword. We will use a space and we write function name parameters, inside which we write the statements or the code within the function. Okay, now we will move to variables in JavaScript. JavaScript variables are nothing but containers for storing data values. Here, variables need not to be declared. By directly using the var keyword, we can assign values to variables. JavaScript gl- is an untyped language. Its variables can hold a value of any data type. Here we can see it can hold a value like number, string, array, and an object. Just by using a var keyword in front of a variable, we can assign any kind of data types to the variable. Next, this comments, that how we write comments in JavaScript. For a single line comment, we just write the statement within double slash, and for a multi-line comment, we just include within the slash star. Next, um, global functions. The JavaScript global functions can be used with all the built-in JavaScript objects. Here we can see an eval function. It is used to evaluate a string and execute it as if it was a script code. For example, if you write inside this function a string which is nothing but 5 plus 6 within a quotes, then it is considered as a string. If that string is a script code, it will evaluate it and it will give its answer. If we write uh, 5 plus 6 within a quote inside that eval function, it will give answer as 11. It considers the string as a script code and evaluate that value. The next function is isFinite function. Determines whether a value is a finite legal number. If we give anything inside this function, it checks whether the given thing is a legal number or not. The next is isNaN function. Here it is similar to isFinite function, but it what we will say check whether the value is an illegal number or not. If it is an illegal number, it gives true. If not, it gives false. Here it will gives true if it is a legal number and gives false if it is an illegal number. Next, number function is used to convert the object into a number, and string function is used to convert the object into an integer. Sorry, string integer into a string. Paris float and parisint. This both functions are used to paris a string and return a floating point number or an integer number respectively. Next, JavaScript display possibilities. Okay, we have different display possibilities for a JavaScript. If we want to write anything inside a alert box, we use window.alert. Here window is nothing but an object and alert is a function which is used to write anything inside an alert box of a web page. As we can see, this is a HTML code within which this is a JavaScript code which is written inside the script tag. When this is executed, uh, anything which is written inside this window.alert is displayed on the alert box of the web page. As here we can see 5 plus 6, here it displays as 11. Next, writing into an HTML output. If we want to write anything on HTML output using a JavaScript, we can do it with the help of document.write, where document is an object and write is a function which we use to write anything into an HTML output. As we can see, this is an HTML code where this part is the JavaScript code. As it runs from the body, we get my first web page and my first paragraph. Here we use document.write. Anything which we write inside it can be seen on the web page. As it is the function of document.write, we want to write it into the HTML output. So if anything we write inside it, we get it on the web page. As here hello world is written inside, we got hello world and sum is equal to 11, we got it. Next, writing into an HTML element. If you want to write anything inside an HTML element, we can do it using inner HTML. For this, first of all, we have to know which element we should write the anything inside. So in order to get the element, we use get element by id method. Here the get element by id method returns an element with a specified value. Here id attribute defines the HTML element. Which element get element by id is what we'll say taking is determined with the help of id value. Here we can see the code. As we can see here, id value is given to this paragraph element. So here we are considering paragraph element and we want to write within it the statements. In script, here we can see we declared a function, we defined that function using function keyword message and using document dot get element by id my text. As we declared here, as we had the id value my text, we are using this id value and getting the element with the help of document dot get element by id. After getting this, if we want to write anything within this element, we use dot inner HTML method. And if we write anything here, that can be written into this paragraph. And when we execute, we will get that on the output. As here we can see, this is an tag used to get a button. And on click, it will show a value which is show message one, and this is another button, it shows message 2. On click, it will go to the message one function, that means it will go here. After going here, by getting the element with the help of element id and writing this inside, if we click this, we will get output as hey thanks. That means this one is written inside the paragraph element and that one is shown on the page. If we click the show message 2 button, message 2 is uh, called and this string is obtained on the web page. Next, windows.prompt prompt method. Prompt method is used to display a dialog box. that promotes the visitor for input. It is generally used if you want the user to input a value before entering a page. Here we can see the syntax: prompt text comma default text. Here text is a string to display to the user. Anything which we write here, it will be seen on the input tag. And whereas default text, it is a string containing the default value which will be displayed in the text input field. Here as we can see this code in the script tag, here we used this paragraph element with the help of id. Again we used get element by id function and we got this paragraph element, and we wrote this entire string inside this paragraph. We declared where as a person, and we use this input prompt method. Please enter your name. As we can see, this text is shown here on the input prompt box, and this is a default which we used as a space which can be seen here in the input field. If we enter anything, for example I written a name Sushma, if we enter that this one and click ok, in the place of person you'll get Sushma, and output you'll get as hello Sushma, how are you today. We can see that here, hello Sushma, how are you today. So we can use prompt to get to enable user to give any input, and it can be shown on output. Next, objects. Some important objects of JavaScript has many. As we know, it is an object oriented programming language. It has objects, and some important objects of JavaScript are string, data, array, math, boolean, document, and window. We used this document and window in previous slides. We used document.write, where we used it to write into an web page, and window.prompt to to use prompt method. Similarly, these all objects are used in JavaScript in different applications. String provides methods and properties related to string manipulation, whereas data provides methods related to data and time. Array provides methods related to array manipulations. Math provides properties and methods related to arithmetic. Boolean represents a boolean, and document and window are also the objects of the JavaScript. Okay, my part is completed. Now I'll